Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ebony Janice. I go by Ebony Janice, which means that you should call me Ebony Janice, and it's Sunday. Jay-Z, The Range, Why Hip Hop Belongs in My Epistemology. We're talking about my homegirl framework. So, let's close out the month strong. I need a nap. I want to finish something that I started at the beginning of this month, though. A few Sundays ago, I introduced you to what I call the Big Four. This is the epistemological framework at the center of the Homegirl project that I've been working on. The four thinkers whose work forms the intellectual spine of everything I'm building, particularly as a hip-hop womanist. So there's Zora Neale Hurston, Toni Morrison, Emily Towns, Dr. Emily Towns, and Jay-Z. And I told you that I was going to come back to Jay-Z. So today I am speaking to that, and it's such appropriate time because Jay-Z out in these streets again. Conversation for another day. So here's an honest reason why people feel uncomfortable when I put Jay-Z in that company. And it is because the academy has a hierarchy of knowledge. Peer-reviewed scholarship at the top, literary fiction somewhere below that, popular culture at the bottom, and then hip-hop especially is often treated as the least serious form of cultural production available, even though hip-hop is the most consumed. Conversation for another day. But that hierarchy is not neutral. It's encoded with class bias, race bias, and it suggests that the definition of intelligence is supposed to sound a particular way, and I reject that. Not because I'm anti-intellectual, I am not, because I am serious enough about intellectual work to build my own framework rather than to inherit one that was never designed to hold what I actually know. So I have this idea that I call the range, which is the epistemological methodology underneath the Big Four. I'm going to explain those words. It says that valid knowledge comes from three sources: your ancestors, your education, and your lived experience. All three are required. None supersedes the others. So, saying that, Jay-Z's body of work is primarily a knowledge project rooted in lived experience. The specific lived experience of a black man navigating poverty, ambition, empire, fatherhood, love, failure, recovery, etc. Taken seriously, not as entertainment, but a body of thought, his work constitutes a sustained philosophical project about what it costs to build something and what it costs to become someone. 444 is the most explicitly theological album in his catalog, I think, even though I could go all the way back to Reasonable Doubt and preach it. But a black man at the height of his power making an album about his failures as a husband, about what he got wrong, about what love required that he did not know how to give. That kind of public reckoning, that willingness to be accountable in the work is not common, and it is not small. Here's why he belongs in the homegirl framework specifically, or what I'm building around hip-hop womanism. He asked the question number one: do you fools listen to music, or do you just skim through it? And because I don't, there's that. I bring the Jay-Z into that. But I also feel like I can't have a serious conversation about black women's sovereignty without having a serious conversation about black masculinity. And I think as an MC, Jay-Z does a good job of growing up in his music. He's not just still talking about when he was in the streets, even though that is still a part of his conversation sometimes, but he's talking about being a father. He's talking about being a husband. He's talking about his moral failure. He's talking about therapy. He's talking about really radically mature things, considering the genre is extremely young. And a lot of MCs have ultimately felt like hip-hop was a young man's game, but Jay-Z at the age of 56 has shown that there is still something for us to do in this art form to grow it further. So I have said a lot of words. There are more things that I want to say because I really want to talk about how Dr. Emily Towns, as a womanist ethical imagination contribution, really gives me something even that adds to what Jay-Z is saying. And when I talk about Toni Morrison and Zora Neale Hurston, The Rock's memories, our spiritual imagination, all of that is happening. So I'm ultimately suggesting that all four of these in my Big Four are in conversation with each other. And so even though this is about homegirl and this is my hip-hop womanist ethic, Jay-Z is a necessary, essential part of this conversation because there's so many elements of his work, and both as an MC and just as a man, that I do feel like reflects some of what I need to talk about politically and socially and spiritually and culturally and creatively. And this is the last thing that I want to say. When I say that hip-hop is sacred text, I mean sacred text in the same way that when I read about David, who is very problematic, I never exclude the wisdom that David has just because David also is problematic in many ways. David is still offering wisdom. The purpose of the text, the purpose of what we're understanding about David is so that we can glean the wisdom. And that is the same thing that happens in hip-hop particularly. I've never thrown Jay-Z away because of the places where I may trouble his politics or the places where we may differ in our belief systems, because he has still is both reckoning with it, but seemingly reckoning with those areas of his life, and also very human and flawed. And so we get to learn not just what is right to do, but to use this as a metaphor, as a poem, as as information for what might we want to consider that is different from what is being revealed through the life of this sacred text. I talked way longer than I meant to in this video. Happy Sunday. I'll see y'all in June.